Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Marks YouTube channel and the Dragon Suplex Podcasting Network. It was a light week in pro wrestling. I don't mind it. I enjoyed it a little bit. Skipping Raw this week. Last week was a bit of a chore to get through. And then SmackDown, you saw Goldberg appear. Ronda Rousey in the mix in the main event of the ladies division right now, which, bores the shit out of me. It sucks. We're going into WrestleMania. We're, on the road to WrestleMania. But it looks like I'm still not going to be able to watch week to week. I'm going to tune into the Elimination Chamber, of course, and then I'm going to tune into WrestleMania. I'm going to just give it a break. Like I've said before, the WWE does the video packages better than any other company in the world. So I'm just going to let the week-to-week programming just, fall by the wayside and get hooked on these great WrestleMania video packages that I'm sure they're going to show throughout the pre-show. But how funny was it that they fired Shane? I mean, I got to talk about it. Apparently he was a big reason why the Royal Rumble sucked. And I'm glad they let him go because Seth Rollins versus Shane McMahon, that feud doesn't sound exciting to me. Shane McMahon, was put in a very marquee position last year, WrestleMania, the cage match with Braun Strowman. And that was, no one really gave a shit about that match despite it being a, cage match at WrestleMania. So I think that it was probably a good move to let him go. And it was an hilarious move to let him go. So for my entertainment value, that was probably the best thing you could do is fire Shane McMahon. I'm seeing the GIFs, the memes of him looking like he was going to appear in, AEW. As funny as that is, I don't think he'll do that. I think he's got enough money. I think he's like 50-some years old at this point. He's probably just going to sit back and be retired in Connecticut and live a good life. As we saw at WrestleMania 32, he's got like 3 or 4 kids. They're all going to be teenagers. They're all going to be probably playing sports soon. So I'm sure he's going to be heavily involved with that and away from my goddamn Royal Rumble. So I'm not too excited about the weekly programming of WWE, but I am excited for NWA Powerrr Trip. Yes, the results are out, but honestly, I didn't look into them. I saw the articles that mentioned something about results. I went to the Wikipedia article, saw that there were no results. Why did I do that? Because I wanted to give you guys my predictions. And we're going to start with the women's title match. Camille versus Taryn Terrell. I think Camille is going to win this one. She's the biggest star they have in the women's division in the NWA since Thunder Rosa left. And, Deeb dropped the title to Camille. And I think that, this needs to be an Aldis-like run to legitimize this world championship again. And I think Camille is the lady that needs to go on this Aldis-like run. Then we have Chris Adonis versus Anthony Mayweather. I love Chris Masters, Chris Adonis, Chris Morzetsky, whatever you'd like to call him. Laker fan Chris. He's gotten very good over the years. But I do think that they're just pushing Mayweather right now, so they're going to put the title on Mayweather. No longer Crimson, now Anthony Mayweather. He finally got a full name. It's like the opposite of a WWE push. He had the full name, and then they shortened it to one name. He had the one name, and they lengthened it to 2 names here. Then we have the OGK versus the Fixers. OGK kind of a link to ROH, of course, not only because of their tenure in ROH and forming in ROH, but they're also doing this like invasion angle with Impact right now. So I don't think that it would be good for them to win the tag titles by any means, but this is going to be like kind of a brawl, kind of hardcore match, so you can still protect the Fixers. And shining up OGK might be a good move here. Just give them a mid-card win, bring a little prestige to this tag division in the NWA. Then we have Nick Aldis versus Tom Latimer, former friends, now foes, going at it. Nick Aldis needs to remind everybody that he's the fucking man here. He needs to win. And then maybe go into the title picture. I have a little bit of a prediction about the title picture, but we'll talk about that a little later. Colby Corino versus Rhett Titus, 2 out of 3 falls match. This is going to be a banger. Both men have something to prove. Colby Corino, I feel like, has stepped it up. Most improved wrestler of 2021. I naively gave it to a few other people, but then looking back, I think it needs to definitely go to Colby Corino. Both guys cut their teeth in Ring of Honor. Long tenure in Ring of Honor for Rhett Titus. So he's got a little something to prove here too. And I think both these guys have some size on him. Rhett Titus, very good wrestler. Usually not the bigger man. So I think he's going to have a fun time just throwing around the smaller Corino here. Colby Corino playing the chicken shit heel as of late. I bet he's going to have a good time taking us all to Larryland. Maybe we'll see the Fixers involved, but I do think Colby Corino is going to get this victory. Number 8, Chelsea Green versus Kylie Ray. I think Kylie Ray will get the victory, but Chelsea Green will maybe win the war, so to speak. I think she's going to maybe attack Kylie Ray after the bell, and this feud's going to continue a little bit. We have an 8-man tag. I don't really give a shit. I like G, so I hope his team wins. And then we're going in to the world title match. Trevor Murdoch, the champion, the guy we saw win the title for his kid, right there in the ring, their last big show, versus Matt Cardona, the guy who is, got fired from WWE, made a name for himself in the podcasting world, made a name for himself in GCW, and now he's in Impact too, wrestling Jordan Grace, intergender matches on Impact, and here he is going up against Trevor Murdoch, the world champion. I think Cardona will win this match, and then maybe try to pull a bit of a Shane Douglas move by dropping the NWA title and maybe holding GCW to some certain stature. But then I think he's going to get stopped by Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis is going to come out, and that's going to be the world title feud. Matt Cardona, the guy who doesn't really care about the NWA but holds the NWA title for prestige, versus the guy that we all see as who put that title at the modern day prestige, Nick Aldis. I saw on a Sunday Night Main Event podcast that they were kind of comparing Matt Cardona to the Cody Rhodes of a few years ago. And I kind of see those comparisons a little bit, but I do think that Aldis has the love from the NWA crowd that Cody desperately wants from the AEW crowd. So this is like a bit of a juxtaposition between the Cody Rhodes that the fans wanted a few years ago versus the Cody Rhodes that Cody Rhodes wants in his brain with Nick Aldis. I hope I'm not losing everybody here, but it kind of makes sense in my head, and I already wrote it down, and I'm already on the tangent, so we're going with it here. Of course, I'm not watching any WWE until Elimination Chamber, but I am going to be watching the NWA, like I said, and I am going to be watching New Japan Pro Wrestling. Why? Because they're back, baby. They took a hiatus because way too many members of the roster had COVID, believe it or not. Apparently, it's still rough in Japan. I'm seeing pictures from DDT shows that look kind of skimpy. And then Corrigan Hall, where this, show that was back on New Japan World, it was about a 10th full. Kind of killed the vibe, not going to lie. It wasn't an empty arena setting, but it was damn near close. A small show, less than 3 hours, but it was a fun, short show. We're going to be going into the highlights here, not too much to talk about. The first match, the Curtain Jerker, Yoda, I have a hard time pronouncing these Japanese names, as fans of the show probably know by now. Yoda Nakanishi, a very good young lion, versus Great Okan. They jerked the curtain. Khan had a little trouble putting the young lion away, but then he hits a huge forearm, just drops the kid. Could have been a KO, as Kevin Kelly mentions, but Okan went ahead and pinned him 1-2-3, getting the victory. And then we're going on to the main event. The main event was a junior tag match. Kamaru and El Desperado, former champions, versus Taguchi and Master Wato. Master Wato pinned Desperado, who is the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, or Junior Champion, Junior Weight Champion, at Wrestle Kingdom Night 2 after he won the title in Night 1. So that's kind of, the feud going on here. And then on Friday, Wato is going to have a match with Desperado, which I'm going to be talking about that on this show as well, along with NWA Powerrr Trip and AEW and probably the damn Super Bowl. Kamaru goes after the leg of Wato. Taguchi with a hot tag, doing his usually hilarious ass attacks and everything like that. But it was to crickets because in Japan you can't cheer, you have to clap because of these COVID restrictions. So it was very weird to watch this, usual comedy spot, just no one laughing in this empty building. It was rough. But Desperado gets me back by chopping the shit out of Wato, right? Pretty stiff here. Great match, great main event. You usually don't see these guys in the main events. Taguchi does win for his team. I think that kind of tells you who's going to win on Friday. If you can't even have the challenger beat the champion's partner, then that kind of shows you where they think of the challenge, where they put the challenger on the totem pole in the division. Master Wato probably wasn't ever going to win the title, but that kind of solidified it in my mind with Taguchi getting the victory for his team and Wato just standing on the outside. But we'll see here. We're going to be talking about that match. We're going to be talking a little bit about the matches they're going to have on Sunday. And New Japan is back. They're limping, but they're moving forward. I feel like usually after, Wrestle Kingdom in February, we're really sinking our teeth into, they usually have like a big match coming up in February or March. I think it's not Power Struggle, but there's usually a big card that we're having a hard time getting into, or I am, because the hype was just cut off. Hopefully they can rebuild that hype by the time the New Japan Cup comes around, but right now it looks like rough sailing for these guys with all the circumstances they're going through. But let's jump over to AEW. We had Danhausen randomly coming out with Best Friends. I don't get it. He just kind of showed up last week in the middle of the Cassidy-Adam Cole match, but I don't mind it here because I do think that Danhausen and Orange Cassidy can have some funny moments together. They're funny separate, so put them together and have them explain why Danhausen is with Best Friends in these vignettes. Could probably save the randomness of Danhausen being with Best Friends. It probably couldn't save the Brandy Rhodes angle. Probably the worst segment I've ever seen ever in AEW. Brandy Rhodes comes out. The crowd doesn't like her. She cuts, a promo kind of shitting on the crowd here a little bit, calling them Cleveland when they were clearly Chicago. So I thought she was going to be the heel, but then Dan Lambert comes out. We all know that he is the AEW heel manager of choice for the last few weeks, and they start going back and forth. The crowd didn't know what to do, so they just started booing Brandy, chanting, "Shut the fuck up." And she's like, "Are you done yet?" She kind of played into it a little bit. I didn't know what to do. Lambert made like some shitty remarks to Brandy. I can't really remember too much about it. And then she lays this weak-ass slap. I mean, everyone kind of always compares Brandy to Stephanie, but the one thing about Stephanie is she lays in her fucking slaps. She slaps the shit out of everybody, and this was the weakest slap I can remember seeing in pro wrestling. It was almost like a borderline playful. Long story short, Paige Van Zant, of all people, run out. And then the locker room runs out and breaks up Brandy versus Paige Van Zant. I mean, I remember a few weeks ago saying that the Jade Cargill Anna Jay match was too green on both sides, but damn, Paige Van Zant and Brandy Rhodes, all new levels. I know Brandy Rhodes is probably like a 7-year veteran in the ring by now, but she still might be a little green. Don't pick her yet. She's still green. Let her grow a little bit. Don't put her in marquee matches by herself. Hopefully this can be a mixed tag match of sorts, because I do not see it being any good with just a singles match. I mean, if this segment was any indication. But that wasn't all we saw of Dan Lambert. Dan Lambert comes back out for the Hangman Page promo. Lance Archer, of course, comes out too. Choke slams him, puts the champ through a table. This will be a great match, but Page's title reign feels dead right now, dead in the water, far removed from his initial matches with Bryan Danielson. Those matches were amazing, my favorite of 2021. But here we are in February 2022, and that seems to be like his only defense that I can remember. His only defense of note for sure was just 2 matches with Bryan Danielson. And if Page and Bryan Danielson were kind of, left without anything to do after that. They tried to, keep going with this feud with Archer, but this feud with Archer just isn't working for many people. It doesn't feel like a world title storyline. So the match really, really needs to be good to not only save the feud, but save the title reign. And I feel like the title reign really, really needs to be good, because this is the first champion that AEW has had that hasn't been in the WWE first. So Hangman Page, they really need to put all their eggs in the Hangman Page basket here. Feed them Mox. I think you need to maybe feed him Kingston. Kingston can always get some people over. And then after a few defenses, have Hangman Page drop the title to MJF. That's what I think should happen here. But that was Dynamite. Rampage, Darby saves Guevara. I feel like anything that happens with the AHFO is just a big clusterfuck. Like, isn't Darby with Sting? Isn't Guevara with Jericho? Where were those guys at? Why didn't either one of them save anybody? Andrade and Hardy, they don't make any sense together. Neither does the Blade with Private Party. Just anything that the AHFO touches just turns to a big clusterfuck, and that little schmoz at the end of a pretty good match between Guevara and Cassidy was no different. I'm excited to see the QT Marshall surprise here against Hook. I think QT and Hook, they're going to have a pretty good rivalry here. QT is the right opponent for Hook. You can throw him around, Hook can throw him around, and it's not like you ruin anything. And also, I think QT is a pretty good promo, and Hook is over, so this is going to be a good feud. But let me break down every single match from AEW Dynamite and Rampage this week, from worst to first, before I close things off. Number 8 out of 8, Nyla Rose versus Ruby Soho. Tim Armstrong in the crowd in Chicago couldn't save this match. Ruby Soho fucks up the finish here, just like she fucked up the finish at GCW The World on. Not like, she also fucked up another finish, but she fucked up this finish the exact same way. I don't know what the fuck she's doing. She just jumps up in the air and kicks back and falls down, and I don't know what the hell is going on with this. That's why it's the worst match. Worse than a very short Mercedes Martinez Thunder Rosa match. Pretty much Mercedes Martinez hits a crazy Death Valley driver off the second rope, but then she just pulls out a pipe and hits Thunder Rosa with it. Tanya Harding, eat your heart out. Mercedes Martinez is in AEW. This was great. It was not as bad as the Nyla versus Ruby match, but it was very short, so you can't really put it too high. Number 6, Sammy Guevara versus Isaiah Cassidy. A bit of a clusterfuck. Sammy does win with the GTH 1, 2, 3. Number 5 out of 8, Adam Cole versus Evil Uno. Uno underrated, but Cole does hit the boom knee 1, 2, 3 and gets the victory. Number 4, Moxley versus Wheeler Yuta. I was excited to see Brian Kendrick's debut before his controversial comments were brought to my attention. So I was excited to see Wheeler Yuta. I was really excited to see Wheeler Yuta because not only was he a fill-in for this match on AEW Dynamite on live television TBS, but he also filled in for some wrestlers that couldn't make it to PWG's Battle of Los Angeles, a very prestigious indie tournament. So he was just popping up everywhere, and it's cool to see him. Show up with your gear, and things might happen. I think that's the Tantaka rule. Mox does hit the paradigm shift for the win, though. Number 3 out of 8, Kings of the Black Throne versus Penta and Pac. Pac ends up revealing that he was not blind a little bit early on in the match, which I'm upset about. I thought a blind Pac wrestling kind of like a Daredevil style storyline would be pretty cool. But, Pac is a serious wrestler. He always comes full gear ready, just like Tantaka, just like Wheeler Yuta. So I think he might have not wanted to go that route. Stereo Fosbury flops. Penta and Pac putting on a clinic, but Malachi Black hits the Black Mist to Penta. 1, 2, 3. Kings of the Black Throne get the victory. Number 2 out of 8. Lethal versus Starks, the main event of Rampage. Damn, was this match good. Dueling chants, solid match. Really working snug here, especially during the strike battle. But the match really got the number 2 spot position for the final spot, the final move. Lethal goes for the lethal injection. Starks counters it by just waiting for Lethal to come over with the rotation of the lethal injection, picking him up and dropping him on for the Rochambeau. Looked sick, like a pile driver style move. 1, 2, 3. Ricky Starks get the victory. Ricky Starks, incredibly underrated wrestler. In my mind, he should be up there in the world title picture. If I had the book, I would have him in the world title match and not Lance Archer. Jay Lethal, also pretty underrated in the world of AEW. You rarely see this guy, except for when he picks up L's with Guevara and Starks. If I were him, I'd be pretty upset with my booking in this new company. But maybe he doesn't have the stroke he had in Ring of Honor. But number 1 out of 8. You guys guessed it, MJF versus CM Punk. This is probably going to be, in the top 10 matches of the year, maybe top 5 for AEW. This is really well paced, really well done. MJF versus CM Punk in Chicago. Punk started out in control, crowd eating it the fuck up, going through the crowd even. Nice old school style match. Punk letting the fans even take shots at MJF at one point. MJF uses his tape to choke out CM Punk. Bryce Remsburg, the referee, couldn't see it, calls the match because Punk is choked out. But then when he raises MJF's hand, the used tape falls. Bryce Remsburg starts realizing what happened. The match is back on. Crowd's going nuts. I'm going nuts. MJF locks in a 6 submission, kind of like a clover leaf, but the arm is kind of tied in there as well. I've never seen this. It looked cool. MJF working the leg. Punk hits a Pepsi plunge from the second rope, reminding me of the Second City Saints versus the Prophecy in Ring of Honor 2002. DVDs. I think I even had one of their matches on a VHS that was so long ago. Punk continually going for the flying elbow, not being able to hit it. MJF cutting him off. He finally hits it. 1, 2. MJF kicks out. I thought that was it. Guys. Warlow comes out, hands MJF the ring. MJF hits Punk with the ring. 1, 2, 3. CM Punk gets his first loss in Chicago to MJF. I mean, when are they going to pull the trigger on this Wardlow storyline? I don't know if I care, because this match was so well done. That's all I wanted out of this match, but then the match got so good. When that didn't happen, I almost didn't care, but they need to do something with it, because I'm slowly not caring about Wardlow, and that's the worst thing you can have in a wrestling storyline, is for me, or a wrestler in general in your company, is for the fans not to care. I hope you guys enjoyed this Curtain Jerkin. As always, fly high. I'm out.